Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Brian has given us the okay. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. If everybody would please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February board meeting for the school district of Martinsville. We appreciate everybody braving the elements of the outdoors and finding their way in here this evening, and hopefully we'll all get home safely. The first order of business here are public comments. Courtney, do we have anybody that signed up?
Yes.
Okay.
Julie Reed signed to speak about the consent agenda, the non-certified and certified personnel report.
Okay. Julie?
Yes.
You want to stand here and talk? You want to, okay.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for allowing me a moment to speak with you. I just want to take a second to, first of all, say thank you to the board for the board packet that is now on the website. When you go, you can not only see the school board meeting agenda, but you can also see the packet and all the documents that are attached. I actually took time today to go through those on our snow day and look through everything. I think that was very, very helpful for community members and parents who are interested in that. So I thank you very much for doing that. I think that's awesome. I just have one small request. I'd like to make a public request that when it comes to the certified personnel report and the non-certified personnel report, I know that we used to include those, like names of people who have been recently hired, people who are retiring, resigning, being transferred from one building or position to another. It's a tight-knit community, as you all know. We love to know those things. We love to know who's working with our kids, who's coming, who's going, when, etc. So I would just like to request, if it's not too much to ask, if that could be added back into the agenda or added to the board packet that's available online so we can actually see names of people. I would really appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. And we can say that we had a work session this past Thursday. And I'm sure we'll have more conversations in that regard. Thank you. Anybody else have anything to say? Okay, the next item on the agenda would be the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the minutes from our January meetings, our financial meeting, and our regular session meeting. It also includes payroll claims, payroll reports, budgetary claims, and the certified and the non-certified personnel reports. The board members have all received this in advance and have had an opportunity to look over this. So I would like to move to adopt the consent agenda. Can I have a motion, please?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
A second.
Okay, we've had a motion has been seconded. So all in favor of adopting the consent agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All All opposed, same sign. Okay, consent agenda passes. Moving on to the reports. Dr. Austin, you got anything you want to say, or you want to write to Mr. Butler?
I'll move into just introduce Mr. Buckle. If you don't have time to go through each of the ones here. Mr. Buckle is going to start off with our introduction report for the week, or the month, I should say.
Good evening, everyone. I am just going to spend a few minutes. There were some questions last month, I believe, about the career ladder grant. So I just want to give everybody kind of where we were, where we are, and where we're going, as far as that grant goes. So you have in front of you a PowerPoint that I'm going to be sharing. Mr. Freeze is going to be my assistant on the side. The career ladder grant, we were awarded a year ago, so in February 2020. And that's a great question. I know. So what I included was the objective from the ITOE, the overall objective for all of the schools that applied for the career ladder grant. And the objective really is simply to provide teachers opportunities to further their professional growth, their leadership opportunities within their school district, and to make sure that students have the most exposure to highly effective teachers that they can. We are working in partnership with the National Institute for Excellence in Teaching, which was built into the grant. So that is why they are our partner as we are walking through this. We should have started things a year ago, March, with the national conference, which was unfortunately canceled due to COVID. And this year it is virtual. We're not going to be participating in that either. I'm hoping that next year the national conference is live in person again. It is by far one of the best conferences I've attended. The networking piece of it is just really amazing. So I think that in-person part is really important. The first thing we did was the strengths-based needs assessment. And just quickly, when the NIT partners visited each of our 10 schools and included some interviews with the building leadership, which can include the principal, assistant principal, teacher observations, teacher interviews, student interviews, classroom visits, and observations. So really, they were looking at 4 different areas, and the needs assessments were included in your packet this month for each of the 10 schools. As I kind of reviewed what the overall strengths identified for the school district, it really was a continued theme of commitment to relationships between staff and students, a commitment to collaboration, and a commitment to professional growth. And that was shared by teachers and by the building leadership. Opportunities for improvement were to establish some things district-wide, to establish some building-based instructional leadership teams. We have outstanding things going on in our building, but really looking towards how can we build some leadership teams, including the building leaders, teacher leaders, to focus on instruction, a common language and professional learning focus on instructional practices. So what are best practices that can be common between all of the buildings, all of the schools, all of the teachers? And an instructional framework and clear success criteria for student work and assignments. So those are kind of the areas that were identified that were common between all 10 of the schools. Again, there were some individual tweaks based on each of the 10, but that was kind of the theme that was similar between the entire district. Sorry, Brian, I forgot to give you the cues. The next thing, or the next part that we're in, or started, were learning walks. And I believe when we met last month, I had just been on the first of some learning walks. I will have to tell and share with everyone, the weather has certainly complicated the opportunities for work in our school buildings over the last few weeks. Colleen, who is our NIT partner, lives just outside of Chicago. And so one of my challenges is to make sure that I get in front of her before she leaves from the Chicago area to drive down here if we've had a delay or we had a cancellation. So we have completed learning walks at Martinsville High School, at Brooklyn, out at Green Township, and at Bell. And then we were slated for today. We were supposed to be at Harrigan and with Mr. Bowen at the middle school, and then tomorrow we're at Wilson and Centerton and Smith Fine Arts. So Pauline did not come down today, and she's not coming down tomorrow due to the weather and the e-learning. But the learning walks really focus on classroom visits, and the focus is engaging with students. And I listed on the PowerPoint the 3 key questions that we ask the students. What are you learning? Why are you learning it? And how do you know you learned it? Because our ultimate goal is for student ownership and learning. And so it's been fantastic for me to be in the classrooms, from a preschool classroom at Brooklyn to, we were in the 1st grade at Green Township, to some high school classes, and it's just been amazing for me. We'll continue with those. Colleen has done some virtual work with the principals yesterday, today and tomorrow, and we will continue with those learning walks. Last week, so last Wednesday and last Thursday, the next piece of this was to start the principal leadership series. There were about 20 building and district leaders that participated in this day and a half session or sessions. And really our goals were to build a common definition of shared leadership. What does that look like at a district level and at a building level? To increase the capacity of our principals, who are the #1 instructional coach in the building. I think that's really important to note, that we really believe in our principals, their capacity and their ability to lead their teachers in their buildings with best practices. I thought it was really interesting, Colleen shared with us last week, that statistically or on average, a principal spends only about 12% of their time on instruction. I think that's really unfortunate, because I think that the main role of the building principal is to lead those instructional practices for the students and for the teachers. The final goal is really to develop an understanding of the 5 steps of effective learning. And we want to start applying that to our meetings, having meeting outcomes. And so those were our objectives from last week. So our next steps, actually Colleen and I spoke today, we're going to finish the leadership training series in March. And part of that next session will be to figure out, to determine the criteria for identifying the teacher leaders in our building. We would like to get that kind of nailed out or outlined in March, so then I can take that to the Teachers Association in April, kind of talk about what those plans are going to look like. And then we will identify teacher leaders in the spring, and then we will go through this whole process with the teacher leaders again, either in late summer or the beginning of the next school year. The overall goal is to build collective efficacy, which is really the commitment to all students in life at every level, the teachers with their leaders, from Dr. Arthur to the classroom teachers to the instructional assistants, but it's really that collective efficacy is what we're focused on. So that's just a quick summation of where we are with this, just really outstanding time for our teachers and for our principals to really increase their Thank you for that. I also shared just a couple things in my report that I don't necessarily need to go over unless anybody has any questions. This was just some upcoming professional learning, what the testing update is. I'm thrilled to share that all 6 of our schools that are participating in the Reach the Final Four advanced to the next round. So they're reading, and just really excited about that. And then I also shared that we are so pleased that IMC and Duke Energy committed to another year of Real Men Read. So I included some photos in the packet as well of the Real Men Read. And you can see the picture with the Reach the Final Four. That was kind of when the brackets went out, and so there was a lot of excitement.
I do have a question for you, Craig.
Sure.
On that curriculum report, I noticed that Seesaw was mentioned in that report.
Correct.
And so I'm just wondering, is Seesaw, are you trying to replace Google Classroom with Seesaw, or
Correct.
they're not exactly the same program, but is that the end goal?
That is correct. So Seesaw will be the platform for elementaries, K through 4, and then they'll switch to Google Classroom once they go to the elementary school.
And or the teachers have buy-in in that, and if they did, what was their feedback for that?
So it was mixed, I'll be real honest. There has been lots of conversation. It was, I think, first when we talked about it, it was, I believe, here that it's been, something was decided and then say something was implemented. So this has really been a slow roll. The third and fourth grade teachers have had opportunities the first semester to become familiar with it and use it if they would like, and if they didn't, that was all right as well. The second semester, we've been intentional with professional learning and provided, and then at the beginning of the next school year, it will be implemented in our schools.
So they don't have a choice at the elementary level, then they will have to.
That's correct. They will use Seesaw, kindergarten, well, preschool for those teachers that you said as well, through fourth grade, and then switch to Google Classroom. Yes.
Because I was wondering if they didn't have any access to Google Classroom, so it will be all new when they get to intermediate school, potentially.
Fourth grade will start that transition. So the fourth grade teachers are aware that they will have a balancing act of using some Seesaw also in the Google Classroom. But yeah, it's the same difference, Jackie, as if they were going from second grade to third grade. Because that we just shifted where they were making that shift from Seesaw to Google Classroom.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As a parent, I do like that we are being uniform with one program, because I know before I had to get familiar with 3 or 4, because one teacher would use one way to communicate, another teacher would use another way, and it was hard to have 5 apps on your phone and everybody trying to communicate. So I like that it's uniform and that you can learn one app. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I would just like to say thanks to Cody for the front page article and report time on Wednesday for the real memory program. That's very good. Okay. Very good coverage.
Next topic, district hours training. I'm going to ask Mr. Bowman to come up to the podium as he's doing that. I'll need some other names. Along with Eric, Dennis Mills, our Director of Transportation, Kurt Odell, Director of Food Services, Paul Spar, Brady Hammons, Kyle South, and Ryan Wagner, all principals of our district. They were awesome and volunteered to step up, and I let them say that they didn't volunteer, but they were given an option to volunteer with all of our administrators. We did, as I mentioned, I believe in the last meeting, have an opportunity to join with Eminence and some of the other school districts. I believe it was Eminence that did Eminence that they were the host site. And so in the hosting and paying for that and doing it, there was a lot more financially reasonable for us to do the same training that we would have normally had to send people across other states. So that was a great opportunity. We did that about a year ago.
Yes.
We used grant dollars to pay for that. And so it really was an opportunity to start the conversation about how we get ourselves in a better position in terms of school safety and active shooter training, to be very specific. And so, again, these 9 folks took the time to do this 2 full days, as I recall, some pretty intense training, and they are all now official trainers for the district. So we're lucky to have a whole handful of people. We don't have to go to outside individuals to start training. I also see it as a great advantage in that they can help us make adjustments to training that we need that's local versus having somebody come in from other places that's necessarily understand where our needs are. And even the history of our district is probably going to be through. So I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Boland, and if you guys would mind, just give a quick synopsis of.
Absolutely. Honored to. I was voluntold to be here tonight and speak to the group because I'm the oldest. I think it's the reason they chose me. I am on currently the Indiana Secure School Safety Board for the state of Indiana, appointed by the governor. And that's a safety-driven program that was put in place now in Sandy Hook, if you remember, back in 2012. And during this time with this board, one of the recommendations out of the board has been for schools to adopt options-based strategies for your safety plan. Not to have the old, okay, we have an intruder, lock the door, get in the corner, hide, and hope they don't come through the door and shoot you. It's basically what we have done. Well, the ALICE program is not like that. It is an options-based program. Kyle will go through each of the letters here in just a second. But as you know, it's so important. The safety is our number one concern for our kids. And I'm sitting here with a few of my colleagues where we had a tragedy that hit one of our buildings back in 2011. And I'll have let's talk about it instead of me, because obviously it hit us personally. And with that being the case, we knew we had people call us after that event and said, if it can happen in Martinsville, it can happen anywhere. And they're right, because in 2018, it visited the state of Indiana again in Noblesville. Now, I share that with you because they had just previously done the Alice training. And Jason Siemens, the teacher, used one of the countermeasures to disrupt the shooter and be able to take the shooter and get him under control. And he did get shot during the process. And one of the students that was targeted, she got shot. Now, one of the things about Alice is they are prideful in the fact that nobody that has been through the training has ever died in a shooting. Now, they've had injuries, but so far, pray God that it hasn't changed, nobody has died. So they just had that at Noblesville. They were able to utilize it. People were able to make choices and get out of the area instead of just go to the corner and try to get out of line of sight. So that's one of the things Kyle will go over here in just a minute. But the important part is, it's just like what we said there at the NIDT, where we get the students to take ownership of their learning. In this case, people, teachers and students get to take ownership in their own safety. What could be more important than that? So that's why we were very honored to be chosen by Dr. Arthur and excited to be part of this, because I think it is something that all schools need, an options-based program. Alice happens to be one of the best and most respected in the United States. So, Al?
I was his assistant for 6 years, and I can tell you, I hate calling him up on my I just can't do it justice. But Alice is an acronym that stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. So the beauty of this program, honestly, is that option-based approach. And as I think about Smith-Myers County, where I'm at, you have different options for a kindergarten classroom than maybe you do a senior English class. And this approach does give us those options. And one of the things that, if you want to get people fired up, you start talking about school safety. And as a father of 3 children, my own at home and 400, just shy of 400 at school, I can tell you that is the one conversation that is paramount in what we do with school safety. And the worst conversations that we have with parents are when someone fell off monkey bars or just swings or someone is injured. Obviously, this conversation is very different in regards to school safety and what we're discussing today. When it does come to Alice and options, the situations and scenarios are all different. When you start talking about, Columbine and Luca, and you just go down through the list, all of them are extremely different. So when you think about an antiquated approach that was, and you can correct me here, but I believe that the turn off the lights, get in the corner, and hide and wait for help to come was back in the 80s.
Actually, 1960s drive-by shootings.
Drive-by shootings in California was when that approach was added. So when you're talking about, here we're 16 years down the road from that, that's still some of our approaches to try to keep our kids safe. If you live in a rural school, you might be talking about response times of 10, 15, 20 minutes for people to get to you. So these options, this program gives us options, which is fantastic. And the other part about this is really truly great, not just for our staff, but for our students, is this isn't just for school. This is at a grocery store. This is at the movie theater. This is at the airport. This is an option that you have that really empowers you to make yourself feel as safe as you possibly can, those also around you, in pretty much any area of life. So just want to say thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. Student safety obviously is our #1 goal. Math, reading, all of the other things that go into what we do that are very, very important. We have nothing on top of student safety. So we'd just like to say thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you both. I appreciate you both a great deal and the rest of the team for your commitment to school safety and learning some new things and bringing that back to our teachers and our staff. We're very appreciative of that. So thank you. I'd also just let the board and community know as well, sort of a plan moving forward. We will have some parent find out nights. So there's no intention at this point to train students. The intention is simply that we're just at the point of training the staff. So these fine folks will go there and have a plan. We've been working on it weekly. They just met yesterday, but they will let us in on that. We moved yesterday, yes. Together. I was able to sit on that meeting and we're in pretty good shape up when we to start that. So we're looking about the middle of March to start our teacher training. We'll move pretty quickly through that. We are starting at the higher risk, which is high school, and we're moving downward. Elementary tends to be least risk. We're doing all of it. We want to make sure that we're putting our resources in the hottest spot first. We will then move to a parent information sort of period of time, and then we'll move to informing students and teaching students the same strategies. I think it's also important, just as we're talking about this, to make sure that families know, sort of unveiling this, that everything is age appropriate. So as we think about kindergarten, first, second graders, we are not teaching them the same skills that we would teach somebody who's in age 9th or 10th grade. It's very compartmentalized based on developmental age. Again, as they mentioned, it is a highly respected program across the U.S. and is well developed curriculum-wise for meeting the needs of kids at whatever age we're providing them the training for. Any questions you might have for me or them, or?
Is this being adapted to the bus drivers as well, on those in the lunchroom?
It is.
Anywhere
It is. So we're starting with teachers first in classrooms with the most certified staff. There's a plan to move on to the next pieces of this. We just last week, well, actually today, finalized the plan with Alice in terms of using their LMS, their learning management system, to access all their content. So we now have that. I haven't set the password their usernames, they're coming for these guys, but they'll have access to products or basically content that is for all different groups. So Alice has well-developed products for bus drivers, cafeteria employees, for custodians, for various employee groups. So we will use this to make sure that we have every employee group. And basically, even who steps foot here, who has a reason to be here during the day, would have some level of training.
Thank you for volunteering for that also.
As part of the conversation in the training, talk about a visitor management system as well, or has that come into play, a visitor management system or reunification plan in case of a catastrophic event?
There's conversation, I mean, that's a component, you guys can certainly step there. There's a component of talking about reunification and all those pieces. But the Alice piece that we're talking about right now is directly about active shooter. So it's not the bigger picture necessarily of the safety, that's really kind of another piece that's much bigger. But this is specific to active shooter training right now. That's where we're sort of starting. It's certainly going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. As part of the current plan that we have, there's a reunification component that I'm sure we'll be able to roll right in. And I think we'll be more intentional with that plan, with the go bags and stuff like that, for technology, to wherever you go to be able to access the data for the students. Now, one of the things we found was very, very interesting with the Alice program, with the options based, every room has an option. So this room might choose to evacuate out this door and take off. The room out here, out down the hall, they might stay and barricade. The one out here might go that way. They're going somewhere. So that reunification is not as concise as when you do a lockdown and you know everybody's in the building and then you just check them off the list. The trainer told us you will have, with the shootings they've had, there are going to be a few upset parents because they don't get to hug Johnny or Susie right away. But the beauty is they're going to be able to hug and not have to carry them. You know, so that's a mind shift change because we've always been in lockdown mode, and that's always been for common peace. So now it's like a shift. It's like, okay, it still has to be a peace, but it's not the paramount and first for the safety. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Eric, Kyle, do we have any kind of a general timeline on when we might be finished with this phase, where we're instructing the staff, where we might move into the parents, where we might move into the students?
I can let Dr. Arthur go ahead and finalize that. We're going to be doing stuff here in March with the staff and our certs and some of the non-certs, the aides in the room. We'll be doing that here, I think March 10th, the first building, and then the 31st for the high school, and then we'll be moving into the elementaries. So we're good as a team to go into the buildings, spread them out, break it down, and have very intentional training for the staff. So we'll get that done, and then the next phase is the parents, and then we get with the students. Because it's important for the parents to know the big concern for a little child is, okay, a countermeasure. Are you going to have my kid doing a countermeasure? Well, a high school kid can counter a lot differently than a 6-year-old. right? So everything is content specific in each specific.
So I can give you kind of just the bigger picture. The goal I gave to the team, and I kind of let them sort of run the dream on how to do this and what plans should look like, and training should look like, was we need to have everybody trained by the time before we leave this summer. That's the goal. We kind of unfortunately had to kick the can because of COVID. There are components of this training that really require people to be together, so it's not useful to do it on Zoom. It's not really useful to do it without having people sort of in a space that we can practice, quite honestly. And so we have kicked the can down the road. As I said, they were training to believe it was about this time last year, if I recall. So we could have been moving on some of these pieces, but think about this was exactly about the time last year when the world shut down. So when we sort of started seeing that things were going to open back up, that was the point at which we said, we got to set a goal. Because if we don't set a goal, this is not going to happen. We're going to keep that down the road. And I believe we felt like it was reasonable to get this done by then. Right. That's the goal.
Then with all groups or just with the staff?
All employee groups. If we can get employee groups done, and there's no doubt about moving into students and what have you. Parental training, of course, and parent find out things would still happen this spring. We're not going to figure that out later, but we'll stop to see whether we can get the student consent.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ogden, any day update?
Thank you, Dr. Roger. In your board packet, you will find from our last meeting in January, just an update on the rainy day fund. Just a little bit of history that you guys had kind of asked about. Obviously, it was established in 2008. You can see the expenses. It was like STEM in 2016 and 2017. Those were the two that came out. And then obviously in 2020, 333,000 will be used for those stipends for our teachers and non-certified staff. And again, right now we're sitting at 2.4 million in our rainy day fund. And again, that's a very healthy rainy day fund for a school corporation our size, looking at other corporations around us. We have a very healthy rainy day fund should something come up where we would need to get into that. But again, right now, just based off of where we were last month from that report, where we were very good financial statement. Thank you.
Okay, jump our policies, first read. We have, I believe, 8 policies this time for first read. Just as a sort of an FYI, I really appreciate Mrs. Adams talking to me on the phone this afternoon. We had a quick phone call and just kind of parsed through some of the concerns that teachers might have about these. This particular group of policies are all discussable policies, so they all go into the discussion at this upcoming meeting. But just sort of to maybe be in a better spot for answering any questions or what have you, and also Ms. Adams sharing with me some concerns teachers might have. I'll put some of those out as we go. But we've kind of done a little one-on-one and difficult. So first read, first one is student discipline. There's not really a lot of change to this other than cleaning it up for statutory reasons. The one thing I would just remind everyone is the majority of student discipline rules all follow the student handbook, which you all have the opportunity to approve each year. So this doesn't really contain the details so much. The details are really in each student handbook that typically you'll get in July. That sounds about right. July, August, usually July for approval. And so you'll have an opportunity to use some things in there that are specific about this one that you're concerned about. We would certainly address those at that point. But this is really just the umbrella saying that we've got to have procedures in place for ensuring that we're using discipline in an appropriate way for students, that we're not using corporal punishment, or if we are, we're maybe using the rules that we're supposed to use, which we don't use corporal punishment, we're supposed to enforce. So that's basically the policy. I'll just, once somebody waits out, and I'll just keep sort of moving through. That was C350 student discipline. Apologize. C375 replaces 5610. This is basically taking 5610 and editing it and moving it over into our new policy system. This one relates to suspension and expulsion of students. The suspension and expulsion rules have not changed in terms of statute in the past year. 2 years, 3 years. I don't recall the last time they changed significantly. They still remain the same, so again, just cleaning up language from an old policy and moving it over to the new system. You'll notice at the bottom, or towards the full second page, there's a number of items in there that it's just a duplicate regurgitation of the statute, and really it's suggested that you not do that anymore than you need to. You're not just copy and paste policies, again, go over into the policies, it should just say, go to this code, go look for it. So that when they change Indiana code, you're not having to come back and change policy every time. So suspension of expulsions are pretty well driven by that process. One thing that I'm really proud of in this particular district is that looking at numbers, we were a district that put a lot of kids out in terms of expulsion in the past. That does not reflect our practices anymore. Our principals work really, really hard to make sure that they're providing alternative methods for students to get back in school as quickly as possible. Obviously, there are things that sometimes expulsion is required for. The two that come to mind are drugs. And so if we have habitual drug use or habitual drug selling, usually it's selling, that's one that is pretty difficult to bring a student back unless we have them in a program and they've completed that. The other thing would be, that's also train of thought, a weapon. So typically the two things that we would truly put it out. It's not uncommon for a student to go through the expulsion process, and at the end, instead of actually going to an expulsion, that we would then shift to a waiver, which then the student is not truly in an expulsion situation. The waiver just spells out here, and what you guys do to come back to school, and if you do them, then basically it's a wash. If you don't do them, then we'll come back to the table and we'll make the expulsion a solid in your career.
This policy replaces 5610 and 5605.
It does, and it's combining a couple of things, yes. 5605, I'm sorry, that's 5605.
What's up there at the bottom, the now deleted policy that's on the website. I thought it was a replacement for as well. But it's sort of a-
I'm not sure, I'll have to check out. 5605 is the one that we saw.
Yeah.
Okay, let me check. Okay, staff ethics. This is one that Ms. Adams and I discussed today, just a couple of the changes and some clarifications. There's not really a lot of changes here. It is moving 3210 over to D225, so it's a change in the title. You've probably heard me say this before. I'm trying not to repeat myself once we've done this a time or two. But a lot of this terminology where we go from professional staff and change it to word employee or what have you is because the same policy was written in the old Neola system 3 times, one for professional staff, one for non-certified staff, and one for students typically. So you have the same policy 3 times, exact same policy, just 3 different numbers. So as they're cleaning these up, what they're trying to do is change employee, student, and non-certified staff member all to a term that makes sense for that particular policy. So this one is specific to employees. So cleaning up the language to refer to employees. There was a question about an H, why take out the word partisan? I have that question to our policy attorney. I have a theory why, but I'm not certain, so I don't have a response on that yet. But I believe the reason is because a staff member has the right to have a partisan thought or something on their desk as part of a First Amendment right. I have an icon of a donkey or an icon of an elephant or whatever. You have that right. And so if you put the word partisan in here, we in essence are saying that that's not allowed. And I believe that would then be a violation of their rights. So I think that's why the word partisan is coming out and the word political is coming in. Meaning that our staff are not allowed, anyone would not be allowed to indoctrinate, students on their beliefs about politics, those kind of things. If you can still have your beliefs, you just can't spend your time putting them upon other people. Kind of weird little tweak there, but wanted to explain that. I will follow up just to make sure that that is the reason, but that's the theory behind that. We also, the suggestion for MCA, we'll discuss this further with teachers, but very last sentence for you on I, where it says, it starts with and, so the middle of the sentence, and any other communications that said an inappropriate example for students. The request was we could maybe edit out a little bit. So we initially, and we'll talk about this some more, we'll probably edit it again, but We changed that to any communications that might compromise the integrity of the employee. We're just rewording it a little bit, still means the same thing. Checking your thinking, let me pause.
No, I was just thinking too about, not a huge deal, but, a lot of the policies that we looked at, it's either district or corporation, it's not consistent. Why is that? Some say district, some say corporation, I mean, it's
Certainly
not the
replace
same,
fine and fix them. Yeah, that's not an issue. I'll make sure that we do
yeah, I
that.
would just say be either word to be consistent.
And my suggestion is that we use districts, since that's in our, and that's the. And just a little fun fact, based on, places across the state, if you don't know this, what the, term is in front of the name of your school is dependent upon the period of time in which it was consolidated. It was basically approved by the state. So all the MSDs were about the same time period in history as our corporation, as our, whatever, school town of northern part of the state, your school town of Munster, school town of, just a little fun fact.
Well, that's my feeling, since we're then it's all school district, I
Right.
really, district, we have the policies,
Right.
not corporation.
We will make those changes. We'll go back, because in my opinion, that's really just a technical correction. We'll go back and search the ones that have already been approved and make sure that we do that same thing, unless somebody has an objection to that. Okay, I'm going to move on to D275. Directory workplace. Again, this particular policy combines a couple of different ones. Forgive me, my copy is a little messed up here. 4122.01, I believe, and 4170. So we're combining those into D275, thinking of some of the language there. You'll see in there, there's a comment that says required by IDOE excess cost contracts for students with disability or for students in special education placement. What that's referring to is last month when we talked about, and you guys approved allowing Mrs. Daly and I to sign off on excess cost contracts. You have to have language in policy somewhere that states certain things that you'll require of your employees and contractors that you use. And so you have to ensure, or you have to have an assurance that you will, anybody that you contract with, to provide the services to students with disabilities, that you would certainly have these pieces of language in place. So just know that the whole wording pieces are simply to meet that state requirement for contracts. As you look at, same thing toward the bottom again. Okay, next one. D300. This one is specific to, or is more specific to transportation, bus drivers for the most part, people who drive corporation vehicles or people who transport students. There are really no changes to this policy until we get to the bottom, which is the commercial driving license and alcohol bearing counts. So all these other pieces have been in place for a long time and not new, but we now have an obligation to report information about somebody who we suspect might have a drug or alcohol issue. Or that it's known that they have it. So that's obviously an attempt that student, or that, not student, first, pardon me, that staff member were to leave here and go to another corporation. That is a check that we must do anytime we hire, and the other corporation has to do to make sure that an individual clears that clearinghouse and does not have a drug or alcohol conviction or even alleged issue. This particular policy spells out the things that we're required to do to meet that requirement under CDL. D350, fitness for duty leaves and examinations. These are very rare. I don't recall hardly this ever happening, but it can. How you would use this particular policy is if you had an individual who applied for a position and went through the interview process and were, as part of equal opportunity, were being considered for a position and they disclose at some point that they have, legal blindness, but they are applying for a position that requires them to drive a corporation vehicle. This would allow us, or allows us to, at our cost, have that employee, it depends on the point of the process. Before they're hired, then the cost is on them, and if we hire them, we're then trying to figure out whether they can or can't do something. This policy clarifies what the expectations are for us and how we handle that individual and how we make sure that we're not being discriminatory toward them, but we are also making sure that they truly can meet the specifications of the job. These are some heavy ones. Staff discipline. This particular one is replacing 3139, it's 8375. We talked a little bit about this one as well, so that was another discussion. Maybe we'll talk more about it in district discussion, so certainly may have some changes. I'm sure Jack, you guys in your packet before the second read, so don't hesitate to ask if you see concerns or what have you. I also, just as I did this, we'll get to the ones I'm asking you to take action on. I'll tell you what I've changed since the last meeting, so you're all aware. So on the staff discipline, one of the suggestions that was made, and I completely agree, it's a little confusing the way this is written. If you take that first paragraph and start with employee standards of conduct, and pair that with, well, that particular statement I think is okay and makes sense, but then the next statement basically is the third paragraph that starts with progressive discipline. So it starts with a definition, which we don't think is probably the most clear, somebody who's just picking this up. So we kind of worked on some language. We're going to combine first sentence and third paragraph, and kind of make that one big chunk. So it's talking about, basically, it's telling the employee that we practice progressive discipline in the district, meaning that it's not a termination just because you know, upon your first attempt at doing something, assuming it's not something that's, detrimental to a student or hurtful, that's a battery or something like that. Obviously, that's a whole different set of things, but it basically is just making sure that we're applying basically the same sorts of strategies to all of our staff and we basically do teachers, which is you have to process, you have the right to request conferences with people, discuss what happened if those are things that you wish to do. But bottom line is that it keeps an administration from going to the absolute final step without really thinking about what else we can maybe do to keep that person employed and help them get better. You'll notice too, A through I list of things that are sort of those non-negotiables. And most of those I would argue are things that are going to fall in code somewhere. That as a school employer, you will hire somebody or keep somebody on board anyway for those items. And you'll see the sites after those coming from the FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act. And the final one, the resignation one, B450. This one doesn't happen very often, but we actually had it happen last year. And an individual made a decision that they were ready to retire and then decided after that they wanted to rescind that retirement. I honestly didn't know there was a code for this, but looked at the policy and found the policy. We had this policy on the books already. I don't recall the number, but it was, and this should actually have a replacement number on there. I'll work on that and ensure that I have that for you. So this is actually replacing language that is not new. In the state of Indiana, I think in the education world, if you put your resignation forward or forward, that's it. It's done once accepted by the superintendent or by the superintendent designee. If you change your mind after the fact, it's too late. And part of that is tied to retirement and the things that are required of an employee to receive retirement. So it's an effort to keep that from being messed up, or honestly protecting the employee from losing their retirement in this case. Made their commitment, and we may have moved forward and perhaps notified their retirement goal that this is happening, but if they then change their mind and bring them back, it defies things like a 30-day waiting period between when you retire and you retire back by an employer. So this particular policy in the Indiana code is not something we're just taking out of the air. It was news to me, I did not know this code. We learned last year. We got in a pretty tough situation, and that's also somebody who's already hired back right now. Like you could retire and wait down the road and see what happens, but resignation has to stand.
Well, I did look at multiple school corporations, their policies, and all of their policies did state this, but they also said unless the 40 degrees.
Okay.
So it wasn't just final, it was, unless 40 degrees, which I understand in that situation, if someone's retired, you already, they're going to get a already placed there.
So giving the board the option to, I'm just asking because I don't know, giving the board the option to say, no, we're not going to accept the resignation, like we're gonna.
Well, I could think of a situation where someone was upset over something that could be easily resolved, and that's easily resolved, let's say, in the next day or next two or something, and they're like, okay, great, I'm, okay with that now. That was my only thought. I'd hate to see it's just that be the final thing, and it was just a situation that could be easily resolved.
Let me look at that a little bit. I'm not saying that those other places are wrong. I think sometimes what happens too is that policies don't get updated.
Sure.
Who's is right. So let me check on that.
I appreciate that.
Okay. So like I said, we'll take this district discussion. I believe we're probably about 3,000.
It's the second piece here.
Thank you.
March.
March. All right. Not quite sure. Okay. On action, and then we'll kind of hold this. Do you want me to do these or we just go ahead? Okay, so one of the things that we need to do or think about tonight is appointing a legislative representative to the Indiana School Board Association. Every school district pays in the pot for membership, and you all are members, which we pay for district membership. The three of us are members as well. And so as a part of that, they ask that a school board member, not an administrator, we get our stuff from all kinds of other areas. They want a school board member to sit as a liaison to the ICA and offer suggestions and be a part of meeting. Terry Stratton, the person that's over ICA, holds 3 or 4 meetings a year in which he gathers input from that group of people, smaller than every board in Indiana, to then develop what are the legislative priorities of our district board. So it's a really pretty important thing. And I think there's a lot of power in members in this position because you get to know other people and other corporations that are nearby. And you kind of group together and try to move things forward. It's a pretty important position. So I would ask the team again if you could appoint somebody to that position officially.
Okay. Do we have anyone that would like to make a nomination?
I make a motion that we appoint as the legislative ISBA representative, Jackie Decker.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion to appoint Jackie as our ISBA representative has been made, and it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, congratulations, Jackie.
She doesn't make a mistake now. Thank you for your willingness to do that. The next item is appoint Martinsville Redevelopment Commission representative.
I would like to nominate Douglas to be on my public development commission.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Anybody have any discussion?
I just have a question. Heather, you said it was requested at the work session. Who requested it? The city did. Thank you.
I also would like to, these 2 committees that you guys on, if it would be possible to get feedback from when you guys meet, I'm sure the board and we do meetings, I think that would be beneficial for everybody as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
We would really appreciate that too, because we hear things from other avenues and it's not always the same information. So that's very helpful.
Before we vote, I want to thank the city very much. Having sat on this committee for a few years, they have really been willing to look at the school and ask what our thoughts were when they put in lights, when they were just very good to ask and include the school in that. I have learned way more than I wanted to about TIF districts. So it is very interesting and they are a great group of people to work with. One thing I will not miss is the 7:30 a.m. meetings. And I did assure them that I would make sure to tell Don that in March it's his turn to bring the So thank you.
Okay.
And thank the city for their willingness.
I wish I'd known that you TIF districts because you could have done some of the financial stuff a year ago when I
Helps keep things quiet.
Sneaky.
Okay, so, the motion has been made and seconded, so all in favor of, Don Lynch being the representative for the, redevelopment commission, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
Great, thank you. And now we'll move into, I think it's the relevant, which we've got a lot of questions or have more suggestions. Second reading and ask for action on all of these. If you're okay, if you'd like to go through them all in a chunk and then perhaps ask for action on all of them unless there's something you feel we should take out, if that would be okay. At least that would might ask for consideration. So the first one, the nepotism policy, there's a couple of changes. The first one, sorry. So that first, I don't know if you have the yellow, you probably don't have the yellow copy, but can you at least see the highlighted? You can, okay. So we changed more than desirable based on our conversation last time, just to make that not quite so negative, we worded that a little bit. The next item, being in the direct line of supervision of other relative, we changed that to relative having authority over supervisory responsibility or no other relative. So basically, you can't oversee your direct relative. You can't be a principal and oversee your spouse's or teacher. Hopefully that's more clear than the way it was written before. Please stop me if you have questions or something that I missed. That was all in that one. I had to change. The next one on the whistleblower, the only change I had on this one was to make sure that it's a director of business affairs. So we made that edit to the bottom. Aside from that, we did not make any additional changes. Yeah, you'll notice it is interesting on this one, we get attached to the corporation district. So we'll get better. This process has a lot of hands in it. That's one of the issues too. So I would appreciate if you guys see something pointed out so we can rectify it quickly. B200 firearms, weapons, and destructive devices. Again, this is the one I talked about last time that it replaces and combines a bunch of the policies. There's nothing here that's isn't in in some capacity somewhere. It's going to bring it all together. Basically, it says that you can't have a firearm or weapon on property unless, and my exception is that very last piece, unless you have it. You're an employee, you have a lock in the vehicle, and have some other details there. So no changes to this from the last time, but I'm just want to give you an opportunity to present any motion out before we go on this. C-125, admission to the district and legal settlements. This one did not have any changes. C-150, homeless students, enrollment rights and services. This one did not have any changes either. F-100, internal controls and reporting losses, shortages, variances, or thefts. F-100 is one of those policies that's required by state board accounts. We did make the determination based on a recommendation from the state board of accounts of $500 level. But that being what we're triggering audit, or our responsibility to reach out to the state board of accounts and let them know that they need to come in and look at something. Anything under $500, of course, would not look low, just simply would not have to be reported to the state board of accounts. So something happens with $300, we still are going to investigate what we have to do, but we wouldn't have to report that as a conflict. Next policy, facility and transportation safety, G-100. There are no additional changes to this one either. I think perhaps someone has a question also about Avalon cameras and where they were. We indeed only have cameras in buses in terms of vehicles.
Yeah, just to make sure to clarify that it's in vehicles.
Yes. G-450. There was one simple change, it was mine, changing the word immutable to unchanging characteristic. So that we're, yes, sir.
I have a question on the last two.
Yes, on the last one.
Will we be notified of somebody that is not?
In terms of, I need a little more.
The board
tackling a little more.
Like when the person is prohibited, will we be notified?
Yes.
When the person is?
Yes. Yes. We currently have 3 individuals who are on the list. But you guys are not here, most of these happen, so certainly I can tell you. 2 of those have probably run the course. Probably those on my end. Those are really administrative functions. In terms of using that no trespass, using no trespass law, under the code superintendents have the obligation to ensure that properties are safe. And so I can't exercise without board approval in something on the trespass order. And that's, I think, what we're referring to. Yeah, so you guys would always know the individuals are at the time which they have.
I just think that's important.
Sure. Sure. It's not easy to decide, so it's very, very good to have that information now. Okay. G 450. Oh, very set up, so that's it. Unless you all have any additional changes or questions or thoughts about any of these, I would ask for action on these policies.
I have a question on G 450.
Okay.
I just have an issue. Can we, it doesn't say anything about the board, it just says the superintendent. Is there the way that the school board would have a say in that also? About the name, place?
So you're going to afford approve any advertising anyway. So we're not engaging with, if we're doing significant advertising in advances, we're going to put a sign on the side of the building that says this building is representing Bluegrass Blue Shield, something like that. Those are contractual kinds of things that involve a lot of money typically or a lot of arrangements. I would always say that those generally are always going to be such an amount that it would never be something that I would be able to, or nor would be right for me to sign a contract. So you would know that. The flip side of that, though, some things that might happen, for example, our athletic director engages with people all the time about selling a sign that's, from bleachers or what have you. This policy is really to kind of manage that and make sure that no employee who has a responsibility to do some of that work is selling to an entity or giving the Martinsville name or unknown to an entity that doesn't make sense, it doesn't align with you sorts of programs. That's really what this policy is about. So I think for the most part, the things that you need to be concerned about will come to you like the contract side. And we'll have one coming soon. Most likely, we're working on some things, some partners. Some new buildings here, so excited about some potential partnerships. And we already have partnerships. It's just them sort of upping the ante and doing some additional things for us. So before we enter into those agreements, specifically, there needs to be consideration.
Anyone else have any questions or any comments or any comments?
I just wanted to say that one of the avenues that we have as school board members is belonging to the ISBA. We get to talk to Julie Slavin, who works with policies, and myself don't mind saying that policies are just really confusing to me sometimes. So it's always great to be able to reach out to her and let her just explain things in layman's terms. So having said that, I just wanted to say, as I was going over some of the changes and policies with her, that I'm really proud of my fellow board members who all have spouses in our school district that would take this extra step in this policy to make sure that there's less likely of nepotism to happen. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Anyone else have anything to say? We go on these,
We can, if you're okay with that, so I want to hear, for all the action, I can rattle off A125, A175, A200, C125, C150, F100, G100, and G450.
Okay, like that, move to adopt that, we have a motion to approve.
I moved that we
In the batch as stated.
Okay, so a motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, the list of policies as you stated,
Thank you very much. Item 11, resolution 442, workers' compensation agreement. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Dr. Arthur. We are up to review our workers' compensation policy. We are currently in 2 different trusts for health insurance and liability and property and casualty, things like that. But one decision was made by previous administration due to the amount that we were paying in those trusts for workers' compensation was to venture outside of those 2 organizations. So we've been working with Morgan Insurance Group, and it's time to review with a different carrier. So we got 4 different quotes. They reached out for us. The first one came in at 103,000. Next one came in at 100,000. We did not get a third one from Hanover Reserve. They just never replied back. And then the Indiana Public Employers Plan, so IPEP, came in at 90,000. So what I asked you to approve is to go with IPEP because we save about $10,000 to $13,000 with that organization. Actually, was on a conference call with them on Tuesday during our snow day, and they only represent municipalities. So they really focus in on these government agencies that can really provide a lot of professional development and really work with us as central office and our directors to make sure that we're looking at that risk management piece to make sure that number one, our employees are safe and we're taking care of them. So we'd like to move forward with that.
Jeremy, the other 2 that quoted, so then Morgan Insurance was one of those that quoted, or they were not?
No, they were not. So we went with, they reached out on our behalf and worked with them. Accident fund was 103,000, and then went with Liberty Mutual came in at 100,000. They reached out to the Hanover Group, and they never got back to us on that. We had previously been with Accident Fund, and I think they work with municipalities, so they're really focused on working with us to make sure so that obviously $13,000 savings there is very, very big.
I think just to clarify, Morgan is still
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I want to clarify that, if we're away from them, or if that's what we're doing in addition.
there's some sort of a broker essence.
Districts for workers' comp.
I'm sorry.
What about some of the other districts? What do they?
Most of the other corporations that are in our trust, some of them go with workers' comp that are in the trust. Obviously the decision was made in the past to move away from that just because of the financial piece to it. But we have not looked at some corporations.
So majority of, I will insert, I'm different people in this, and Jeremy is involved in the front end of the Jeremy Shepherd building side. So the trust that we belong to has 72 members in it. So those are actually quite more than that now. So 72 when I went to the last one, we talked with those over 100 now. For that particular shared insurance fund or group, it's primarily for schools. There are a couple of like special education, so also part of the most part is the school districts and school district owned, or we're all partners in that particular set of programs. They can meet almost any rate in any area of insurance across the board because there's so many of us. And so we all share the risk. And the great thing about that is it's all over the state. So if a tornado hits in southern Indiana, it doesn't interest the state. Yes, we're all taking on a little bit of that hit, but it's not one corporation taking on a little bit and then, it's that partnership that everybody wins in that situation. But you have the right, once they run all their numbers, to look at your numbers and then go outside of the trust on things that don't make sense for you. The district in the past, I would say probably 10 years or so ago, had a higher risk level. We had a series of events apparently in which we had employees that were hurt more than now. And so we each year been able to shift that down. But honestly, it's really beneficial to have Morgan do that because they can run the numbers into this better rate based on our numbers today. When we're in the trust for just that one sliver of insurance, we continue to be in the whole trust. It's a little bit in a higher category. The reason for that is there are a number of school districts that had some pretty significant sexual situations with staff members and students, which has really driven the cost of that up. We don't want to be in that pool, and so this is the reason we need to do a shop. All the other rules make sense for us, but this particular one does not.
And the mortgage insurance comparison, so that we're really comparing apples to apples, so that we're not missing something like the 150,000, but including something that's 9,000.
Yeah, we're not reducing any coverage, if that makes sense. So we're keeping our coverage levels the same, that's the expectation, just simply can you do better on the rate, just like we did with the homeowners.
And Jackie, we reached out to them just because they came in lower, and we wanted some, hey, why did they come in lower? And really gave us some details. And having that conversation with them on Tuesday, they were just driving municipalities rather than, so, yeah, this was their recommendation.
The majority of our claims do, actually come from facilities, bus accidents, that kind of stuff. It's typically not classroom kind of things. And so one of the things I really like about bigger trucks, even though we've not taken on insurance, they do a great deal of work on helping personal injuries. It's kind of not fun because they really give us a hard time about everything. It's good though, because it gets our rate in a much better spot. How that plays out for us, Dennis, Sam, they work really hard for their staff to remind them it's icy out today, make sure that you're wearing shoes that you should be wearing. Just little simple things that probably a lot of people will think about, but those are things that they could sort of program themselves. And it has helped a great deal. It's just a reminder with the goals. Just be more careful. Or do you have your safety harness on the right way? Things like that.
One more to Jack, good question. On our call on Tuesday, so should we have to send someone over to the emergency room? They will send a claim representative over there for the past, we haven't had that opportunity. So really, that's kind of a piece of, hey, we're making sure that everything's filed right, and then they give the information to us, and then because statutorily we have to file within 48 hours. So if we miss that, then we're fine. And then if, for example, I could miss that 48-hour deadline, they will be fine. So it's just that piece of kind of the customer service piece that I think would be really good. It'll help us out.
Any other questions or comments on resolution 442? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve resolution 442.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 442.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of resolution 442, workers' compensation agreement, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, and ask Mr. Freeze to step up to the podium and have mine for the Senate.
I'm good. I'm good. We're gonna be looking up here anyway. So tonight, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. We are at that time of year where it's time for renewal for our web filter. Web filter is required by SIPA, which allows us to receive federal funding through E-rate. And we do that by providing safe and secure internet for our students and staff. And so I'd like to propose that we switch to Securely Web Filter. So Securely is a cloud-based filter. Right now we are using a filter called Lightspeed. It's a fantastic product, however, the way that we're using it with 3 physical servers, that we actually filter through the district, all that traffic goes through us, they are no longer supported. And so Lightspeed is asking their customers to switch to Relay, which is their cloud-based product. After doing a lot of research with Relay compared to Securely and several other cloud-based products, Securely really came out on top for several reasons. One, it's user-based. So we're not just logging traffic, individual devices, but actually users. So we see exactly who's online, where they're going, what they're looking at, and we're getting a lot more granular information. It's a lot more cost efficient in terms of what Lightspeed is wanting and some of the other companies that we looked at. A lot more user friendly, also allowing administrators more transparency. So now principals will have a portal that they can actually see students in their building and their traffic. So if there's a question or a inappropriate search or anything like that, they'll actually be alerted as well. So it kind of keeps, the system keeps up one step ahead of us. So now they're not waiting for me to catch something, but they're able to see it on their own. It adds some really cool features like parental control, which I'll talk about, administrative control, which I just mentioned, teacher control, which I'll talk about again, cloud-based. So what that means is that it's going to reduce a lot of the network traffic that we see. Right now with Lightspeed, we're proxying. That means we're pulling all the traffic from all the kids' devices, whether they're here or at home, through our network. And that's really bandwidth intensive. So with it being cloud-based, we're going out to the internet, it's going to see that, and then it's going to bounce back. So it's not actually going through our system, pulling our resources. We're actually using Securely's resources. And I've talked with several other districts, Perry Township being a prominent one. They've been with Securely for 3 years now. They've got 17,000 plus students that they're filtering very successfully. And so that was part of the reason why we were considering this project. 24 reporting, which I'll circle back to that as well. Then it also offers safe filtering at school and at home. So the devices that the students take home, they're going to have a very similar experience when they're at home as well. So one of the big things that I wanted to hit on that Securely offers that a lot of other companies don't is teacher control. If you take a look here at the platform, sorry, it's probably it's a little hard to see. Teachers are actually able to see a snapshot of all the devices that are in their classroom. They're able to see what website the student's on, if they're on or off task. They're able to message them. If Johnny's playing a game and shouldn't be, needs to be focused, teacher can say, hey, please get back on track. The teacher can also lock down their browser to a specific site that they want them to focus on, so they're not distracted. Teachers also can close open tabs and view a lot of really great information. So this is really beneficial, especially now with COVID, as we're encouraging distance. Teachers are able to have a better job of actually monitoring what's going on devices. A really neat piece that I think is even more important, especially for transparency purposes, is parental control. So when kids go off-site, when they're off our internet and they go home to their internet, parents actually have a portal that they can log into, and they can see the traffic, the internet traffic for their student that day. They can see their searches, they can see what internet sites they've been to. So they can see if they've been on task, and they can see if they've tried to go to places that they shouldn't be going to during the school day. Parents also have the ability to lock things down a little bit more. You know, kids aren't perfect, kids get a lot of spare time. Sometimes they jump on YouTube and they just want to watch YouTube for 4 hours in the evenings. Parents have the ability to shut that off. So if it's not school related, if they're finished with their homework, they can shut that down. So students aren't able to do that. So it gives more granular control to our families because devices, especially one-to-one, being ever more prevalent, this allows our families to see what's going on during the day, but also set some limits and boundaries when our kids go home. And then 24, that's a really big one that I want to talk about. As a district, we use a product called SafeMail. It does a really great job monitoring students' email, and also looks at their Google Drive. 24 adds a whole other layer to that, where it's also going to be looking at URL searches and website searches. So it's actually looking for things like, unfortunately, the things that we see, like, how do I cut myself and no one sees it? It's Securely going to see that. Not only is it going to see where they've been to on the internet, it's not only going to see where they're searching, but it's also going to see their emails and their Google Drive. It's going to see all that content. Then it's going to be able to pull reports, notify principals and administrators in case we need to move rapidly on a certain situation. So very similar to SafeMail, but it adds even more layers to hopefully help us continue to prevent unfortunate incidents and keep our kids safe. So that's kind of Securely in a very quick nutshell. It's a very big product that offers a lot of really great opportunities for us. You know, right now, basically what we're doing Lightspeed as is we're filtering the internet. You know, we're running basic reports and we're seeing very basic traffic. What Securely does is it lets us get to a user-based level, but also gives parents and teachers the opportunity to help keep kids on the right track. Did anyone have any questions?
Brian, how long has Securely been in the school business? Have they been here a long time, or is it relatively fresh?
I would say at least 5 years, but I don't know for sure. I've spoken to a handful of districts that have been with Securely for 3 to 5 years at least, so I can tell you that. I'm not sure past that though. But all the school districts that I have talked with, especially part of the tech board, one of the largest tech conferences in Indiana, Susan Parker, an amazing resource to the districts, actually president of the tech board. A lot of Indiana technology directors talked through that avenue and Securely came very highly recommended.
And Brian, what about staff members? Staff members, you know, should decide they should, who all gets notified of that? Just you or anyone in your department?
So right now it's just me. I would be the one that would see that information. And so yes, this also, obviously our staff are still filtered at a very similar level as they would be with Lightspeed. There really wouldn't be any changes. What we're trying to do is alleviate extra steps for our staff. Right now our staff have to go to a specific website to log in. They have to renew that every 5 days. We've really struggled to find a way around that. With Securely, you log into Google, you log into your Gmail, you're filtered, you're authenticated. And it works with any browser. So whether you open Chrome, Firefox, Edge, IE, it doesn't matter. You log into Google and now you're filtered. There's no special website you have to go to. There's no link you have to click on. It's just there. Staff can also request for sites to be open. So if they do get blocked, they can make a request to open that site. Anytime you've got a filter, you're implementing something new, there's always a little bit of growing pains where there's some sites that need to be opened up and some sites that shouldn't be open that we need to lock down, but that's with any filter.
Brian, are you making the recommendation for the 1 year, 3 year, or 5 year?
I'm actually recommending the 5 year. I've seen a lot of success with districts continuing with Securely. Securely is actually continuing to grow their product. They're actually in beta on adding some new features that a lot of other cloud-based filters are not. I see Securely as a really great sustainable resource for us that's continuing to add on. Part of the reason too, I didn't go with Relay. There were a handful of features, 21, 24 support and parental control were in beta. And the last thing I want to do is push out something to our families and to our staff that's in beta. I want something that has been proven and continues to work. And that's part of the reason why I'm recommending Securely.
And this the annual cost on a 5 year plan, is that pretty similar to what we're paying right now?
Yes, I actually included a quote, 1 year quote to continue with Lightspeed, and it's about $1,000 more. And this actually correlates with my second request, and that's just to finish up our server project. Making sure that we have a safe internet allows us to get E-rate funding, which is an 80% discount to network and server-based products. So I do want to make it known to the school board that the price that you see on those switches that I'm asking for approval, we are only fiscally responsible for 20% of that overall cost, not the entire cost. That company will actually reach out to USAC or the FCC, and they will get that 80% reimbursement. We will only be fiscally responsible for the 20%.
So Brian, you're in essence asking for action and approval of these two contracts for these two products.
That is correct.
The item 12 and item 13.
Any questions for Brian? Okay, I'd like to ask for a nomination here, or a motion here, to approve the request to for Securely quote and also for the E-rate awarded vendor agreement.
I move that we approve securely quote and to approve the e-rate.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Real quick shout out to Todd Miller and Brian Breeze last week. I know a lot of the city was impacted by, yes, sitting straight back here. We were impacted by the power surge and it did some significant damage around here. So they got us back up and we did not have alternate plans for students, which we were starting to get into that mode and we're gonna have to start sending kids home or something because the temperatures and all the things that happen when you have no power and you've got internal rooms and no lights, et cetera. So I really appreciate Todd and Brian for getting us back in shape for today.
I think you my kids do not.
Number 14, I'm super excited about this. The Community Foundation reached out to us, and I will share with you, I don't have a lot of details, and that's because an individual student made a donation along with us. It's a memorial contribution to their attorney. So they put this in their will, and their attorney is enacting it on their behalf. So the Coastal family, if anyone knows that family, feel free to say thank you to them. We don't have a lot of information on that, but this is an endowment through the Community Foundation. So they asked the Community Foundation to offer these dollars to the MSC in Martinsville. So we're the recipient, we're the named recipient. And so tonight I'm asking for you guys to acknowledge that and also allow us to be to receive funds from the Community Foundation on behalf of our students and scholarships. I do want to real quick just going to give you one paragraph to give you an idea of what this is for. So we can go to a lot of different things. The amount is $92,774.87. And so that money will be held by the Community Foundation. It doesn't sit with us, it sits with them, they manage it, they invest it, they make the money off of it, and then the money that's made off of it is what then goes into giving us the scholarship. So the $2,000 and change will all sit there. It's the interest and investment that we're creating the scholarships from. So what those are for, any individual that's accepted into and attend accredited to or for your private institution of higher learning is described in code and it has an NEAN code. And in particular to such students who meet the following qualifications: 750 to an exemplary student athlete, 750 Coastal Living Trust scholarship to a business or agricultural student, $750 to a Coastal Living Trust scholarship to a trades or vocational student, $750 Living Trust scholarship to a student who will be enrolling at Ivy Tech Community College on campus, or then cents. In the event that those are not possible, there's language here that then allows the Community Foundation to then give the $750 scholarships to us for other types of students who don't meet those requirements. So you got to go through that set first, and then there's the student that meets the ones the dollars are applied, and we can go to other students. So pretty exciting. The 750 will just depend on each year how much interest they get. So one year might be one, we may not have one the following, we may go back 3 or 4, third year. So it will be sort of asking the board's approval for us to receive the scholarship opportunity from the Community Foundation.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the Coastal Family Memorial Endowment Scholarship Plan.
I make a motion to accept the Coastal
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Anybody have any questions or any discussion? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the Coastal family. And we're very appreciative of people thinking about us long term and be after they pass away. This is a very amazing gift that we'll keep on giving to our students. The next 3 items are donations. So CIDM bank donation of $1,750 to the technology department. Macklin family donation of $1,000 to Martinsville High School football. Hopefully I said the name correct. United Way Central Indiana Literacy Matters grant of $1,350 to Fairfield Elementary. Asking for approval of those 3 donations.
Were there any stipulations on those donations as to what they could be used for or should be used for?
Brian will have to speak to the technology.
No, specifically, no. It was just technology to benefit our students. So anything specific, no, there was not any.
And the number 16, $1,000 mileage is not, that typically the athletic ones are not tied to a particular set of requirements. 17 is the United Way. This is an ongoing not scholarship, grant opportunity. I believe Paragon has had it in the past, we've had it in different schools in the past, but it's an opportunity for Paragon to work on literacy skills and to do some extra things in their particular building. Brian Cox is really good about looking for dollars out there to support his school, so this is one of those examples.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept these donations.
I'll make the motion to accept this donation.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Anybody have any discussion or any comments? Okay, I'd like to vote on accepting the CIBM Bank donation, the McOwen family donation, and United Way Central donation. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next item, I just want to superintendent's comments. Sorry, I'm doing your job, Mr. Lewis, like always. Okay. Real quickly, just want to do a staff shout out to our facility crew and our custodians, particularly our facility crews. For the last 2 weeks, they've been working 15, 16 hours a day to get our parking lots and our sidewalks clean. They cut us down the pavement almost every time, without fail, on time for us to be in buildings or do whatever we need to do. So I want to give a shout out to Josh Thacker, Bob Thacker, Brady Piercefield, Dave Johnson, Dave Stratton, Chad Winkle, Sam Lyons, of course, running that through, and then MVP Mark, who oversees all of them. An amazing group of people who just take care of business. You don't even really have to think about it. So they're very much appreciated. So thank you to them. And then I also want to do a really quick construction update. You know, last time there were some questions about, I couldn't exactly answer. I didn't want to follow in the wrong date on our 2 construction projects. So we're super excited. I toured both yesterday just to kind of get an idea where we're. We are looking to receive occupancy. That doesn't mean we're moving in and Berger's already in Israel and they're quite that. But we should receive occupancy of the Berlin project by 3/1. So we're right around the corner there. And the activity center would be by May 1st. That is if everything goes perfectly from here on out, and how that kind of goes. So it's just give everybody an idea of where we are, pretty close. The Brooklyn project looks really, really good. They're almost to the point of clean. So that's a big thing in the construction world. But we're wrapping up here pretty quickly. If you haven't had a chance to drive out there, it makes that building look like $1 trillion, and it really spice things up. So I really appreciate your support of the things that we'll do at the STEM Center as well as previous boards that helped us get the bond and all those things for that particular project. It is a great selling point for our community. Not to mention, I guess, for that, it's a great thing for our students. It's also a great selling point for attracting, I believe, students. We've been doing great STEM things all along, but now this really gives them a place to showcase that and do it in places other than just their classrooms. The build out has, for example, a dedicated art area with a kennel. It has a robotics area. It has 2 significant group rooms. They're separated by a glass garage door, so they want to open it. They have significant building space. That's actually probably a little bit bigger. So pretty cool. It allows them to do some competitions, those kinds of things on the weekend as well. So things we haven't been able to do, because we don't have the space, we'll be able to do. So that's super exciting. This one, that's all I have.
When both of those are done, are there departments now?
Yes, we'll just celebrate an official celebration and open house all our, yeah, absolutely. Those are, yes. Great opportunities for us to showcase our kids, our schools, and all the things that are going on.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rollins. Any school board member have any comments before we close?
I do, which Dr. Arthur took one of mine with the snow removal.
Sorry.
He, and he is correct. I've been in here really early and they are already plowing and they've got the sidewalk. So, yes, kudos to them. That is awesome. Also, which I thought Dr. Arthur would announce this, but he didn't. So, I love how this came together and it's something for tomorrow night's basketball game. But I want to just give a shout out. Students approached me at last Friday's game. It was at a school, another school district, and they came up and were like, hey, they've got their pet band at the game. They've got a student section. Can we get one? And I didn't have an answer, and they were cute looking at me with their little faces saying, let's get this accomplished. So I hate bothering Dr. Arthur on the weekend, but again, I had no answer. I couldn't explain why they were, we were not. We have a last home. Texted Dr. Arthur. There was also some staff in the gym with me as well, and they were like, let's try to get it done. And so Dr. Arthur was very willing to look at it, talk to Audrey, and try to get something set up that we could do this. So very appreciative. The pet band, good luck to them. They have a competition, so they'll not be there. They'll be greatly missed, but the student section will be there, and I think that will be great for the players and for everyone to just get back in the gym and get back to some kind of normal. So thank you for doing that on the weekend, and I just think it's great that the students initiated that, came up with the questions, and we were able to work through it. So thank you very much for that.
I know I said it was done, but two things in tighter, because really quick, I forgot, prom and graduation. I think it's really important thing that they're out there, because I know we kind of talked about it on the backside of COVID. We are actively working, the administration at the high school is actively working with students to identify how do we do those two things safely. Graduation is fairly easy. We're hoping to duplicate what we did last year. But we're working with students to get their input on that. We'll be bringing those things back to you pretty soon. We do intend to have a prom. It's going to have to be a COVID sort of style prom, but at least we're going to be able to have one. So we're excited about that, and we're trying to get input from the students on what is it that you want to see in that particular event. Here are the rules, but aside from the rules, what other things can you creatively do? So sorry about it, but it triggered that thought. I think that's a really important thing for our kids to hear.
And I just have one last thing. I would love so much for them to be here, but with contact tracing and the possibility of one of them still being able to compete, I told them I would kind of do a fat head version, smaller. But last weekend at semi-state, we had two wrestlers competing. The first one is Bo Hess. He is a senior, 4-year varsity wrestler, mid-state conference runner-up, sectional runner-up, regional runner-up, semi-state qualifier, losing in the ticket round. He finished the season 29-5. 3 of his losses were from a ranked 3rd in the state, and 1 loss from someone who was ranked 6th in the state. Bo also belongs to the football family. Again, he is graduating this year, and I told him I would make sure that everyone knew that his graduation plans were to become a professional dancer. So that was Bo Hess, and congratulations to him, and thank you for representing Martinsville at semi-state. Also, who went to semi-state, Trevor Hott. You need to remember this name. This kid's a sophomore, and he went to semi-state. He wrestles in the class of 113 pounds. His record was 33-7. He has an 82.5% winning percentage. He scored most of the points, scored most team sports, scored most team points all season. He was 2021 Most Valuable Wrestler, 2020 Region Qualifier, 2020 Freshman Sophomore State Qualifier, 2021 Semi-State Qualifier, 2021 Freshman Sophomore State Qualifier. His coach, Ryan, can't think of his, said about him that Trevor is one of the hardest working kids on our team. As a freshman, he reached the regionals and stepped that up to this year as a sophomore. He went to semi-state. He'll be one of the team captains this season, and he stepped up into a leadership role. He does everything we ask of him and are excited about the next 2 years. Again, this kid is a sophomore. It's going to be exciting to see what he does in his future. Trevor also belongs to the football family as well, and with the finalization of the new facility, wrestling will get to come home where they belong. and can compete. So very exciting, for the wrestlers.
The space is huge. So that's huge. It's
And if you've
exciting.
been to a competition, it needs to be huge. It's, wow, so many things going on at once. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Any other board member?
I have an item on, want to bring that on there for the following or for future agenda, and it's public speaking policy 167.3. So I want to begin discussion on that as well, and basically just like to see if us have some verbiage in there to allow the public to speak, like, for example, at tonight's meeting, we might discuss something that one of them had a question about that wasn't necessarily what they thought on the agenda, and maybe as we're talking, they have questions. And as the policy is right now, they're not allowed to ask questions unless they sign up previous. So I'd like to see that change. So, just some preliminary discussion on changing that policy.
I took that note. I'll go back and kind of rework that and see if I can come up with something with our the policy person, or other suggestions or other wiggles of that policy. You have a chance to look at it.
I just think it would be a good idea to give the public a chance to, make an announcement, ask a question, make a comment. I think you should be able to, before the end of the meeting, come back to the Okay. Anyone else? And I would just like to reiterate what Dr. Arthur said about our staff who cleared all the parking lots. Give them a shout out because they did a great job. It's been a difficult week, and I'd also like to give a shout out to the city street department for their work this week on getting main roads open, which helps all of us as well. So if no one else has a comment, I'd like to entertain a motion for us to adjourn.
Well, I'd like to thank the teachers as well because they, were anticipating all of this and the parents throwing into learning, on days that they weren't necessarily anticipating that. So they've done a fantastic job. So I want to thank them.
We're shooting for on time tomorrow.
The goal, the difficult week.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Okay. Motion's been made, seconded. All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say